Good evening, everyone. Alums and friends, thank you very much for joining in. We have yet another speaker series lined up today with Fermatics, Singapore biotech startup story. So I'll just, before handing over to the speaker, I'll just go through a couple of things and also, give a bit of introduction to our speaker today. As we've been organizing a speaker events from the MIT Club of Singapore. I'm part of the EXCO, and we have a couple of other EXCO members in the group in the call as well. Stefan, can you just go to the next slide so that I just have the just the housekeeping things which I would just like to go over. So the format of the event today is an interactive session where we are going to have about 5 minutes of introduction, then 15 to 20 minutes of speaker presentation, and then about 10 minutes of a moderated interactive chat with the speaker. And finally, we'll open it to the forum for the questions for about 10 minutes. Overall, we're trying to keep it between 40 to 45 minutes so that we don't overcommit on the time what we've catered for. A couple of small housekeeping requests. Everyone is requested to be on mute during the presentation so that Dr. Stefan can go through the presentation. You may type in your questions in the chat box at any time with your name in it, or raise hands on the side using the Zoom. Q&A period will be the end of the chat or the moderated interactive chat after that. This event is being recorded, and the recording of this interaction will be available on our MIT Club of Singapore LinkedIn page and Facebook page. So let me first introduce a bit about our speaker today. Dr. Stefan Bahnmueller. So he is a seasoned professional with more than 15 years of senior management experience in specialty chemicals industry, working with Bayer AG and Lanxess AG in Germany and Asia. Lanxess obviously now is Elanxio. He has had managerial expertise in leading new businesses in different growth sectors like nanotechnology and rubber products, with proven success in introducing products in new markets. He's co-founded Hafnium in 2017, which is a venture capital company focusing on specialty chemicals, materials, and biotech. Fermatics, the topic of today's presentation, is one of the spin-offs of Hafnium, which was founded in 2019, and where Dr. Stefan is currently serving as a CEO of the company. He received his doctorate degree at RWTH Aachen, Germany, and has published numerous patents throughout his career. He's also joined by two of his lead scientists of the company Fermatics, Dr. Chen Xixian and Dr. Simon Chang, whose fundamental research forms the main technology backbone of Fermatics. Both Xixian and Simon received their PhDs from National University of Singapore and have been long-term associated with the Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology, in short, SMART, in their journey till now. So to hear about them, without further ado, I would like to, invite Dr. Stefan to the virtual stage. Dr. Stefan, all yours now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sashi, and also Jingsu for the opportunity to present here, also in the name of Simon and Xixian, who are also here in the call. Yeah, I'm happy to give you an overview about Fermatics. As you mentioned, that is a Singaporean biotech startup. We are dedicated to green and sustainable production of so-called high-value ingredients via biotechnological approach. Yeah. So our goal is actually quite simply described: replace existing synthesis and extraction method of high-value ingredients by our patented fermentation platform going into high-margin industries. But let me first go into Fermatics a little bit more. Fermatics was founded officially beginning of this year, so we are very, very young. There is a co-fund set up between Hafnium and ccelerate, who are our main shareholders. And Hafnium, as you mentioned in the introduction, I'm also there working, and we evaluated the technology that is available in A*STAR, and therefore we founded Fermatics out of it, because we believed, of course, in the technology. What is the technology that we have patented? So it is a BioTech platform based on E.coli fermentation. To give you a little bit of overview, so currently natural compounds are found in many high-end applications, but so far there are no broad commercial access yet. Yeah, that means that these compounds are relatively rare and also, of course, relatively expensive. These compounds, as mentioned, are natural compounds. They are called carotenoids, apocarotenoids, and terpenoids for the chemist here in the audience. And if you can see here, they are quite complex in its structure. So if you look at the bottom, at the top, carotene and astaxanthin have a really complex structure that makes it very, very difficult to synthesize them in a chemical way. Some exceptions are there, of course, but most of them are limited in the production volume and, of course, are very, very expensive. So we have here a BioTech platform that is based on the patent that Simon and Sisian have patented. And we are quite confident that we have here a good technology in order to go into these compounds and producing them in a larger and cheaper scale. What is our technology, or how does it work? We call it one step from nature to nature. Yeah? So basically, we are using, and that's comparable with the beer brewing, just that we use a little bit different feedstock and a different catalyst. So we use here as a feedstock glucose, which is a sugar. And we add our patented engineered E.coli bacteria, which is our know-how, our expertise. And we use and ferment them into a one-pot synthesis, and then we receive products. Yeah, our products are unique because they are high-value ingredients. As I mentioned already, they are hard to synthesize in a chemical way. We think our products are competitive because our fermentation process is by far cheaper than expensive extraction out of plants. And on top of it, we can add a certain value. We are green and sustainable, as we, for example, and that is always the biggest issue when you, for example, look into biofuels or so on, we don't waste any food sources. Yeah. So altogether, we have a platform of robust E.coli strains that is capable of producing high amounts of so-called high-value ingredients out of relatively cheap feedstock. And we use here also possibly a feedstock that is a byproduct of the sugar production called molasses. So we are really sustainable and green compared to the existing processes. I would like to explain you a little bit more. Why are we sustainable? Why are we green? Yeah? And I would like to give you a comparison between the natural extraction and our fermentation technology. And I would like to use the example of our raspberry essence, R-alpha ionone, which you can see on the right-hand side, the chemical structure. For the natural extraction, you can use 500 tons of raspberry and extract the essence out of it, and you will receive approximately 5 grams out of it. With our fermentation technology, if we would use the same amount of feedstock, 500 tons of sugar, we would gain a multiple out of it, approximately 1,000 kilograms of our alpha ionone. You can see by that example that the new way of producing these highly interested, high-value compounds is by far more efficient, by far more productive. And on top, as I mentioned, which is absolutely important, we don't waste any food sources. and which is of course potentially for a small country like Singapore also very important, we don't use a lot of land. You can imagine to grow 500 tons of raspberry, you need a big area of land, which is simply not available in Singapore. Therefore, we think we have here a really competitive, green and sustainable way of producing these products. What kind of industries are we targeting with our products? We have currently 4 products in different development stages. Yeah. So as mentioned, we are trying to target directly, not mass markets. We go into specialty markets where we presumably have a higher margin. And on the left-hand side, you see our product Viridiflorol, also with a very complex structure that could go into oral care applications. Currently, you can extract it from essential oils from certain trees grown in Africa and Australia. It has an anti-inflammation effect and also an antimicrobial effect. And we have here, for example, achieved the highest yield, highest theoretical yield. So we can produce that already in a scale that is then highly interesting for a commercialization. The next products are lycopene and phytoene. You can see that the structure again is relatively complex, and on the first slide you don't see that there is a difference, but there is a very fundamental difference. It is simply the amount of the double bonds is different, and just this small and slight difference makes it very, very difficult to synthesize it in a chemical way. So lycopene can be extracted out of red tomatoes, whereas phytoene can be extracted out of the white or crystal tomatoes, which is by far more rare than the red tomato. Hence, phytoene is a very, very precious compound. Lycopene could act as a food additive, as a red food colorant, because the red tomato is red. It is a very strong antioxidant, has therefore many health effects, and it has a proven effect against prostate cancer. Phytoene goes in the same direction, but it has additionally application potential in the cosmetic area. That's why it makes it highly interesting for us to go also in that industry. First of all, it acts as a UVC blocker in a certain wavelength of the light, which is harmful to the skin. So it protects the skin, and therefore, of course, it reduces also the wrinkles, which is highly attractive, of course, for the cosmetic market, but which the most important effect here is the so-called skin tone modulation effect, which is a unique proposition for the Asian markets. The skin tone modulation effect is basically the skin whitening effect, and that makes it interesting for Asia, because the Asian ladies like to have a fair skin, and that's why we have here a collaboration partner ready to go into these kind of applications. On the right-hand side, as mentioned already, our essence from raspberry, our alpha-inone, that is going into flavor and fragrances. It has a very strong odor strength. It can be synthesized chemically, but not in the pure form. So the pure form must be having the flavor of raspberry, whereas the chemically synthesized has a mixture of other odors, which is not wanted. The next point is, of course, the success keys of Fermatics. As I mentioned, we have started up Fermatics in a co-venture between A-Star and Hafnium. And we believe that we can speed up the time to market significantly if we have directly the two parts together, the technology and the commercial part. We think both parts are highly important in order to be successful in the market. For us, it is always important to increase the probability of success, and that's what it is. We cannot predict the future, how successful we will be, but we can increase the parameters and the factors in order to become more likely successful. And that's why we brought these two factors together directly from the beginning. Yeah? Moreover, there are many examples. If you have a perfect technology and a beautiful science, and I'm talking as a scientist because I love to talk about science, but at the end of the day, the most beautiful science that has no value if no one wants to put money on the table. So we think that at the earliest stage, actually, you have to have the impact or the info from the market in order to develop the products to the market needs, and not into a black box where you don't know whether there is a demand from the market. So we have here the technology part on the left side from A-Star. Of course, this part provides the very skilled scientists. We have the two scientists here on call, Simon and Sisian, providing the unique technology which we have evaluated prior to setting up the venture. From A-Star side, we have the technology backbone, which is also utmost important, because at the early stage you have to tap on that expertise, tap on another expertise. And in A-Star, there is a big pool of brilliant and bright people. And if you can, let's say, tap on their expertise, it is very fruitful for the development of the company, of course. The next point, equally important, facility and equipment. Yeah, of course, for a startup like Fermatics, you don't want to have a capex at the early stage, for example, to invest in a laboratory or whatsoever. Because that would directly suffocate the business, because the capex you can use for setting up the business. So it is a very good way of starting up the business and using the facility of A-Star. Not to mention, of course, the equipment usage is also highly important, because analytics, it costs quite a lot of money, and if we can use the analytical equipment at A-Star, this helps tremendously in order to proceed here quickly to the market. Last but not least, the commercial part, equally important. From Hafnium side, we have a very big network of industrial partners. So not only with regards to the market or the customers, we also have people or network in our people in our network who are, for example, could act as a toll manufacturer or something like that. So we have quite a broad network where we can put the puzzle into the overall piece to increase the probability of success. Next one is, of course, also very important, the management and strategic guidance. We have people in our Hafnium team who have led businesses already in SMEs and MNCs and have a certain experience, which is absolutely valuable for a startup company. Imagine if the scientists would start the venture on their own, then they have to manage the company as well. We think everybody should focus what he can do best, and our scientists are skilled and very good in developing that platform. Hence, we think that they should focus on that, and we take over the management and the strategic guidance, of course. The market access is, of course, the point that is very important in order to have a business. Yeah, we believe to have the info and the data from the market as soon as possible shortens also the time to market, and therefore we have here a very good interaction with potential customers and with potential trends and with potential applications that could compete to ours. I have talked quite a lot about our scientists. I would like to do that a little bit more. We have here really, we have to say that without the scientists, we would not have started, and the technology, we would not have started the venture. So Fermatics as a deep tech is highly technology driven. Therefore, our scientists have, as mentioned, special skills, very special, and that is good because that is our differentiator. Yeah. And of course, they are very high, have a high motivation. Our scientists have also developed what makes Fermatics, yeah, our unique technology platform, and that's why we also think that we have a unique selling proposition if we look at the global competitiveness, yeah? And that is very, very important to believe in that and to go from there into a venture like Fermatics. On top of it, of course, our scientists are having the comfortable position to be employed by A-Star, but working at the same time in an exciting startup environment. I hope for them it's exciting, but I think it is quite unique to have this kind of experience of two worlds, which are normally not compatible, so to say, because on one hand side, you have a research institute, on the other hand, you have a flexible and quick startup. Normally that doesn't go together, but I think we have found here a very good compromise to tap on best of both worlds, and provide the scientists who have to develop the technology the best possible position. Yeah? And that is, I think, a very unique setup here. Of course, at the end of the day, our scientists are getting also the opportunity to become shareholders of Fermatics. That comes without saying, actually, because we also believe if you are a part of a venture and it belongs to a certain part to you, then the motivation is high. Yeah? And therefore, for a scientist to have developed a product out of your own technology and the customer wants to put money on the table for your product, this is, and I'm talking about my own experience, this is most satisfying. And that's why we would like to have the scientists on board from the early stage and want to keep them, of course, as long as possible. That comes also without saying. Talking again about the scientists, I would like to introduce you to the team, of course. Simon and Sisian are in the call. Both are the inventors of the background IP, and that is what makes Fermatics special. So their technology is the foundation of our company. Would like to also mention here Qingning, who is also doing the strain engineering together with Simon and Sisian on alpha ionone. She is also very essential for our team in order to have here better results. But also we have Christoph and Ben in the scientific team. Christoph is production downstream processing, whereas Ben is doing the functional testing that goes into the regulation of these products we produce. And we have to know the regulation and the function of that product in order to go for certain application. You see here that we have interdisciplinary expertise under one umbrella, and that makes it quite interesting because you can discuss on certain problems which come always along from different perspectives. And I believe that we can solve with this setup problems faster than if we have, let's say, only one perspective on a certain problem. Yeah? Last but not least, the last point, I'm not really happy with how I wrote it, but let me explain that in my words. If we have highly motivated scientists, and that was for me also highly important when we evaluated the technology on Fermatics. The technology was ticked, but also the people are utmost important. So you need to work with the people on daily basis. Now COVID a little bit through video calls, of course, but you have to have a certain good relation with it. Otherwise you cannot go into such a venture. So that was for me equally important. Can we work with these people? Also ticked. So I have here really a highly motivated team, highly motivated scientists. And that is outstanding, creating an outstanding spirit amongst the team. And at the end of the day, this benefits also on the company performance. Yeah. So this is a soft fact, but very important as well, because that is not measurable, but it's very important at the end of the day of the company performance. That is based, of course, on my experience. Now, talking always about the scientists, we have also the commercial team, of course. We have industrial experts like Krishna, but also business development people in the regions. They are very experienced commercial team with an entrepreneurial attitude. All of them have led certain businesses already in different areas. That makes it very helpful because they have experience and can also contribute from that point of view. Yeah? So we have therefore a very strong network in the customers' industries. What was, of course, highly important for us to say that our business will be a global business. We won't, or we cannot only focus on Singapore. So we directly wanted to have a global setup in order to directly approach global customers. Yeah, that was very important to gather this kind of information at the early stage as well. Okay, our path forward. Of course, a little bit difficult to directly say that in detail, but we have a quite good understanding how we proceed here. Although we are a very young company, as mentioned, less than 1 year old. But of course, there are different ways on how to proceed here. Yeah. So first of all, a certain partnership could be a potential way on proceeding here, in order to share the expertise. Yeah. For example, our expertise, our strong expertise currently is, of course, the strain engineering. That is our unique selling proposition, and that is what we have. But we would like to go on in a partnership, or we have done that already, with a partner who has maybe the market access stronger, or maybe the upscaling of the product stronger, so that we can share and create a win-win situation. I think for the beginning, this is a very important and strong point, to have a strong partner aside where you can tap on and get the business together with that partner running as quickly as possible. In parallel, and this is not in the order of magnitude as it may look like here, but in parallel, we would also like to strengthen our expertise. I have introduced you 4 products in a different development stage. Of course, we would like to go also for new businesses. That means to develop new strains for other high-value ingredients based on the demand of the market. So we would go for a new business with a partner that tells us, okay, we have here a component that we always are looking for. It's the hottest component ever, but it's too expensive because we have to extract it. And that would be another way of going forward, to dedicate work together with that partner on one strain. Of course, at the end of the day, I call it independency, probably also not the right or best wording, but at the end of the day, we would like to have our own production, preferably, of course, set up in Singapore, and of course, also establish our own sales channels. We don't want to limit ourselves only on the current expertise on strain engineering and become a service provider. No, we want to cover the whole value chain, and that includes, of course, also the sales channels and get the info directly from our own customers. Yeah. So the vision is here very clearly to become a leading sustainable manufacturer of high-value ingredients renowned in our customers' industry. As a personal summary, this is my last slide. I would say I'm quite confident on that. We have really a good team. We have a good expertise. And as mentioned, the soft factors here are playing a crucial role. The team has a good team spirit, and we are in an exciting market, or we go into exciting markets with high growth rates and interesting product applications. So maybe in 1 year's time, I can do another presentation, and then I can tell you more a little bit about it. Thank you a lot for your attention. Please get in touch with us whenever you want. And if you leave us a like in LinkedIn or Facebook, I would be very happy as well. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Stefan, for a very insightful presentation. Very interesting to understand the growth of Fermatics at a very early stage. So what I would like to do here is, slightly probably structure a small conversation, start a small conversation going on where, we can discuss a couple of points and then probably open it up to the quorum to ask, any questions they have. Very interesting points you mentioned. One which interested me was on the slide number 7, where you talked about the customer segments, where the industry segments, right? So, I think you identified the target market. Probably the thing we would probably try to understand is, how would you envision to monetize the customers going forward? End of the day, customer is the key. You've identified the certain industries. But when it comes to, let's say, 5 years down the line, which you want to monetize, the company or the product, what would be your, the mode of approach? I mean, would it be like, it can be various, it can be a one-off sale, one-time sale, or maybe a licensing model. So it may, can you, I mean, just put some insight into that? That probably,
Yeah, that's of course a very good question, Sashi, and a very crucial one. First of all, we are in specialty markets. We don't want to go into commodities, and that is the first selection criteria. So for us, it's very important to find maybe also certain niches where we can go into it and maybe be the sole supplier of it. Yeah. So talking about the business models, that depends, of course, highly on the customer itself. I was talking about new business, or I described it as new business. That could be an interesting way of differentiating ourselves in order to talk to a customer in an early stage, trying to understand what the problem of the customer is, and then providing a solution. Yeah, that solution could be, as I mentioned, he is seeking or she's seeking for a molecule that is not available in the market. Yeah, it could be available, but it's too expensive. Then we could say, okay, we develop together a strain and produce that for you. At the end of the day, the business would be a licensing business, maybe exclusively to that partner globally. This, of course, I cannot say now, but at the end of the day, it must make always a certain win-win for both partners. And from Fermatics' point of view, of course, we, as a small company, we have to see how we can enter market as quickly as possible. Yeah? The time to market is here very crucial. And in order to go for it very quickly, we have to select strong partners, at least at the beginning. And that is, I think, the crucial step to proceed here.
Okay, that's a good insight. Thank you for that. Let me just lead the conversation just on you mentioned a slide where you showed the various stakeholders. So let's say in terms of the startup itself, can you, I know it's very early stages, but you might have faced some challenges in terms of the various stakeholders involved, right from, let's say, the scientists to infrastructure to on the commercial side. If I may ask, is there a specific challenge that you faced in the last 1 year on any of those stakeholders, like skilled talent or industry partners or regulations or market access, or even investors, because you are still at a very early stage of inception?
Yeah, of course, there are always unpredictable hiccups. That comes without saying. So, and we face actually the challenges probably any startup in the biotech area is facing. Of course, I mean, the technical hiccups are always like, do we achieve higher titer? Can we do the downstream processing or the scale up? These are rather technical points we discuss nearly on a daily basis, yeah, and try to overcome. As mentioned, these things we have to identify where our strength is and where our weaknesses are. Yeah? We have to be very honest in that stage of the startup. Where are our weaknesses, and can we replace our weaknesses with a strong partner? That is how we like to overcome it from the technical point of view. And it is always a question, and I mentioned it already, I think, in my presentation. It is always a question of increasing the probability of success. That sounds very simple, but this is always a piece by piece on a daily basis. We have to increase and improve every day in order to be successful with a higher probability. Yeah, and to do so, you always have to challenge or ask yourself: do you have, for example, these parameters? These parameters are the experts. Yeah, is the experts there? Yeah. Do we have a good industrial network? Yeah. Do we have partners that are strong enough? And so on. Also, what I mentioned, the soft facts are really, really important. So can we work together with the people? Can we create a good team? Can we create a good team spirit? That's utmost important to overcome all these challenges on a daily basis. I think we are on a good way. Of course, I would have hoped to be quicker in certain aspects. That comes without saying. But when I look at it on when we started and considering that COVID time has been, we are on a good way.
Great. I think that's some of the challenges. Thank you very much. I think we've got some couple of 3 or more questions from the audience. Just before we go to the audience questions, I just have one last, probably a dimension to chat upon. Since we are, we are. I think apart from leading the company, you're also you're also the owner of Hafnium, which is a venture capitalist firm. So from an investor's angle, how's your journey been so far? Just to understand that, and also for the scientists, for your lead scientists who are Cician and Simon, how has there been? If they may answer in their own words, how has their experience been so far compared to their education with the NUS and the SMART program? That I would love to hear your both perspectives. After that we will open it to the public.
Yeah, okay. Let me answer your question first on the perspective from Fermatics. I can only answer you that with 2 words. It's exciting. Yeah, it's an exciting journey. And we are on a daily basis, we learn new perspectives and new people and different impressions. That makes it really, really exciting. And that learning process, of course, by the way, it's also fun. Yeah. I like to do what I do. Yeah. From Hafnium perspective, of course, it's a little bit different. We have the venture builder, Hafnium Venture Builder, and we have to look here, of course, a little bit from a more holistic perspective. Yeah. So for us, it would make sense to look from the Hafnium perspective. It would make sense to see, is that technology unique? Does it fit into our expertise? That's a clear tick. And then, of course, does it also fit in the overall ecosystem? For example, is there a strategic fit to Singapore? Yeah. And for Fermatics, I can say yes, very clearly, because here we have food and ingredients that is in our target markets as one of the mentioned ones. And that fits into the overall strategic situation of Singapore. Also, when we look from Hafnium Venture Builder perspective in going into new ventures, yeah, that if you have, let's say, an adjacent venture that has a certain fit to Fermatics, then it adds another synergy, another value add. And that's how we approach the whole thing from a holistic perspective. Does the next venture make sense to the strategic fit and also to the existing ventures? But now I would like to ask Simon and Cician also, not that I talked the whole time.
Yeah, probably one of you, what's your journey so far from a student to, let's say, a researcher to, let's say, the lead scientist of a company?
Maybe I will start. Afternoon, everyone. So I'm Cician, so one of the research scientists working with Fermatics. So I think I would like to just share that actually for this part of technology development, it's not really like overnight. We just built the whole platform. It really takes a very long time, and it's really starting from our PhD time and all the way until the A-star. So it's more than 10 years of accumulation of knowledge and know-hows, and then we can develop the such kind of technology. And I would say that we were quite fortunate because in our PhD trainings and also A-star trainings, our experience is actually all quite related to industry development. So like my supervisors, he has his own, he also is an entrepreneur. So he also have his own startup. So we kind of was immersed in this kind of environment. And we were quite fortunate also to be funded after our PhD by SMA Smart Innovation Grants as well, to develop our technology. So I still remember, we joined, Simon and I, we joined the boot camp. I think it's the first boot camp that is organized by Smart Innovation Grant. And we actually won the boot. So it's a pitch that is, they teach us how to pitch to investors and all that. So yeah, it was quite exciting to win the boot. And I think the most important thing I take away from the boot camp is really the team is very important. So I think for my PhD study and all the way until now, I was really fortunate to have like-minded people who will work together as a team. And no matter, even though the journey has been up and downs, a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, but because the team are here together and we work together, so I think I'm really happy to see that and very proud that our technology has been spun off as Fermatics. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So let's, thank you very much. I think in view of time, let's open it up to the audience, and we have a couple of 3 or more questions. I think we have the audience is not very large. So I'll first start with a question from Toronata-san. I can actually read out the question, or maybe would you like to ask it yourself, Mr. Toronata? Or okay, so let me just ask the question. So so a couple of questions here, which is where are you in terms of funding for the company, and when did you start generating traction? Was it one product, or you have developed 4 products which are fully funded? So maybe that if you can give some insight, where are you in terms of funding? Where
Yeah, we are in the comfortable position that we have started a co-venture, as mentioned, between A-Star and Hafnium, and we are funded already for the initial 2 years. Yeah, we have the opportunity to evaluate first the technology, yeah, and then proceed. So we are not in the current stage under a very high pressure with regards to investors. Of course, we are looking for investors. Of course, we are open-minded to investors. That comes without saying. But it is at the current stage also quite comfortable and good for us to not have the immediate pressure from the early startup. Yeah. Sashi, I think you're on mute.
Sashi, we can't hear you. Never mind. Let me read Lionel's question. He's curious about the specialty chemical industry. Would you be able to comment on the scale in which these specialty chemicals are purchased, and how does that compare to your production scale?
That's actually a quite interesting question. Yeah? Let me refer to the example I brought of our alpha ionone, the essence for raspberry. And if I refer here to the flavors and fragrances industry, the product would be that this is, let's say, a pure product that goes into a formulation for perfumes, for example, or other flavor compositions. So the volume and the percentage of that alpha ionone will be in a lower single-digit percentage. Yeah. So you can imagine that the volume per application is not huge. Yeah, like let's say world-scale production for polymers. Yeah, so you cannot compare that. but that makes it interesting because smaller volumes and higher margin, that is an interesting balance here to play. And that's why we think it's worthwhile going into it. On the other hand, you have to always consider that we are talking here about a fermentation process, and the fermentation process has always the problem that you have, let's say, depending on what kind of product you have, but normally you have let's say a lower yield, and then you get always the problem you have, let's say, a few grams per liter product in the broth, and you have to get it out of the broth. So if you have, let's say, 1,000 liter, you have 1,000 grams of product, and the fermentation takes place for 3, 4, 5 days, including the downstream processing. So it sounds from the theory very simple, but of course the devil is in the detail, so to say. You have to always calculate that the volume is also a little bit restricted. But nevertheless, for example, on our alpha ionone, for annual production, we would maybe talk here about a few thousands of kilograms, to answer the question. Global annual consumption, of course.
And second last question from Toronata again. He asked Stefan, if you don't mind, what is your approximate burn rate monthly, if you can share? And that question.
Of course, I won't disclose that, but as I said, our setup has the advantage that we have, let's say, a safety period or whatever you call it for the first 2 years. So we are very well funded with the scientists, with the people who come from Hafnium. So from that point of view, we have a relatively comfortable position here.
Okay, I have a last question from an entrepreneur and investment perspective. What do you and the team think are the 1 or 2 situations that can derail you from achieving, what your company deserves, which is potentially very, very useful and impactful to society?
Of course, the first thing that comes into my mind, if there is another disruptive technology which you have not calculated with yet, that comes along and they can do it better, cheaper, bigger, then of course this is a big threat. But I think that is always the threat if you have a new technology. But I think, to be honest, I can exclude that. The other threat that we face, of course, is regulatory issues. We have, for example, out of the 4 products we have under development, 1 is not so well known. So we have to investigate first what kind of function this compound has. Of course, there are a lot of literature and there are a lot of indication in what direction it goes, but you have to prove it first. And that is very important. And then you have to, if the functions are there, let's say, for example, antimicrobial or anti-balding effect, then you have to go into into the markets, and then you face regulatory problems, so to say. So this is always a threat that we face. Another threat that comes always along: can we produce on a competitive level? That is always something that we have to challenge ourselves on a daily basis and be honest with ourselves in the early stage. And also, if we would know in the early stage, no, we are not competitive, stop it. We don't want to waste something. So these are the most threats I would think of currently.
Thank you, sir. Sashi?
Okay, so I think we've probably answered most questions. Any final questions for Dr. Stefan before we, close the session? Okay, so I think thank you very much, Dr. Stefan. Thank you very much, Simon and Cician. It was lovely to have you here and share your experiences and thoughts about the company Fermatics and also your input. And for the rest of the audience, I mean, please stay tuned. We have another speaker talk coming up next month, December the 14th, where the CEO of Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology, SMART, Professor Professor Eugene Fitzgerald will be presenting on a new topic as well. And then we will please watch out for the emails. He will talk about the commercialization of research as well, and how to pursue from the angle of commercializing research and what's being done in the Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology. So stay tuned for it. We will announce the timing for it. The date is on the 14th of December. And stay tuned for more events from the MIT Club of Singapore. So signing off now. So we look forward for your support for future events. So thank you very much.